According to Joe Lacob, all options are on the table for Jonathan Kuminga. Warriors are going to do whatever is best for business. We're discussing with Evan Giddings on today's Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what's the good word, everyone? Welcome to the Locked On Warriors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ways that you can check out this show. We are on YouTube. We stream live after games in the off season. Sometimes we stream live, but you can catch us Monday through Friday on YouTube. Also, wherever you get your audio podcasts, we're free and available. Take us on the go. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. First of all, let's give you a little update of what's going on in terms of the off-season kind of plan, just the itinerary. First day after the NBA Finals, teams can begin negotiating with their own free agents. We'll get into why that's important. June 25th and the 26th is the 2025 NBA Draft. The 29th is the last day for a team or player option to be exercised, and a last day for a player to receive a qualifying offer. On June 30th, free agent negotiations can begin with players not on your own team. It begins the 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. That's the flagship radio station for Golden State. Also covered the team on TV for CBS News Bay Area. Evan Giddings, you can hear Evan on 95.7 The Game, does Warriors Post. You can hear him on the radio call for the St. Mary's Gales men's basketball team. Ev, what's up, man? How we doing? How's life?
Oh, June 17th, loving the off season, getting ready. Obviously, the draft coming up very soon, and then thereafter the new year of the NBA. But rumors are swirling, and apparently the Warriors are a team that, while they might not be involved in the biggest star type of acquisition, they're a team that I think if we learned anything last summer, Chuck, Joe Lacob is always going to find a way to make himself involved in anything relatable to news. And that's what the Warriors have been, I think, the last couple of years. Teams involved, and they finally made the big deal. Will they be able to add another piece this summer, though? I'm not so sure.
That's the question. We read $15, $30 million. Those are the types of acquisitions that the Warriors could be looking into. Also read that the front office is very, very happy they did not go after Paul George and Lauri Markkanen a season ago. Kevin Durant, not going to be in the cards this year, per everything that we heard. But the big topic to start with has to be the Warriors worked out Eric Dixon. No, Jonathan Kuminga, although I do like Eric Dixon. We'll get into him in just a minute. I think he's a tantalizing player from Villanova. Granted, Eric Pascal, the other Eric from Villanova, did not work out that well, but Dixon's good. We'll get to that in a minute. But Jonathan Kuminga, Joe Lacob, in an article with Tim Kawakami, basically through his quotes said, look, I love JK. He's our guy. I'm not standing in the way. We're going to do whatever is best for business. That's what we did with James Wiseman, even though he was my guy, and we're going to do the same thing this time. It's tricky. The best option here may be to bring him back, to work him into the system. But as of right now, we have no idea, and basically just shrugged his shoulders as, we're not committed to anything at this current moment. Last we heard, it was that the Warriors' best course of action could be to bring him back this season and integrate him due to all the tricky nature of trying to work out a deal and getting something in return that you want as well, and having a team pay Kuminga and all these different things that factor in. What did you take away from this article?
I took away that Jonathan Kuminga is most likely going to be back next season. Now, that's under the assumption that there isn't an offer they can't refuse, a Godfather offer on the table for the Golden State Warriors. But I also don't think it ensures that Kuminga is a long-term Warrior. And look, people have been on one side of the fence or the other, and they probably got Kuminga fatigue at this point. But the fact remains, Chuck, that Jonathan Kuminga is the key to the Warriors offseason, because if they decide to give him big money, well, then they have also decided that they have options. They can move him next year during the trade deadline. They could package him for something But I also think that the Warriors are going to be more minor players as compared to last year. We saw them linked to Paul George, to Lauri Markkanen, which they're obviously very happy they did not involve themselves in. But I think whereas last year they were the team kind of at the forefront of all of these rumors, they're going to be the team that is, I guess, reliant on how else, some of those stars fall in free agency or around the draft. Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know if the Warriors are going to be in on those two players. I actually don't think they can be, but the domino effect of those two pillars perhaps falling is what's going to decide how the Warriors operate this summer.
One of the things that I found interesting, a quote from Joe Lacob was basically, hey, if someone throws him an offer, it's going to be hard not to match. What if a team just goes out there, let's say Miami, and granted, cap room makes everything tricky, but the trades, there's so many things that can happen. Teams can pick up some space. But let's just use a team like Miami, because we heard yesterday that they may have some interest per sources. And granted, I've been doing this long enough to know that you've been doing this long enough. How often do these sources turn into anything? If they're not done in 2 hours, like how often do they turn into anything realistically, percentage wise?
Not very often, but another quote that stood out to me from Joe Lacob, Chuck, and I want to throw this at you. He said, quote, "It would take a lot for me not to match, for us not to match." And then he's talking about dollar for dollar. And in regards to Kuminga, there's obviously a constriction on the Warriors this offseason. They can't match dollar for dollar. And so for someone who is as, wealthy and successful as a businessman as Lacob to say that, it does give me the idea that unless a player sort of, in that kind of middle $15 million tier falls into the hands of the Warriors, and I'm talking about, I don't know, maybe like an Andrew Nemhard, that kind of level of player whose salary jumps into that range this upcoming offseason, I just don't see how Lacob would be the guy to basically cash his chips in without getting an equal monetary value in return. So that's why I think it's actually interesting to look at some of the players that could be available this upcoming trade deadline if they make it past this summer. Players in the $25 million range. You're looking at a Trey Murphy, a Mikal Bridges, a Jaren Jackson Jr., who's on an expiring contract if he doesn't get traded. Players that all could help the Golden State Warriors achieve their goals this season and aren't necessarily that expensive. So I don't think it's crazy to think about the Warriors giving Jonathan Kuminga a $25 to $30 million deal in advance of dealing him for a player that can really help them this upcoming season.
I've really never gotten your take on Kuminga just as a whole. What his ceiling could be, how much you believe he would be worth, how much you'd be willing to throw him if, let's say, a team like the Heat came out and said, hey, we'll give this guy $35 million a year, 5 years, $35 million. He's the future of the NBA. Let's go, JK. I want your take on this. So many differing opinions. My stance has always been Kuminga's good. If you think he's the guy that's going to take you to the next level, I don't think that is the case. But again, until the fat lady has sung, which could be 15 years from now, 10 years from now, you truly don't know what a player's capable of. Sometimes the grass can be greener on the other side. I'm getting Evan's take on Jonathan Kuminga coming up. Plus, the Warriors have worked out Villanova star Eric Dixon. Why I kind of like this, I don't know in terms of a draft pick, but just someone that I'm glad the Warriors worked out. I'll give you that coming up on Locked On Warriors.
And buddy, stop trying to dribble the ball.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, and you are down to potentially the final game of the NBA playoffs, the championship, I should say. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never a better time to get in on the action. And the good news is FanDuel makes it easy to stay in on the game before tip-off and live. They got player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. If you think you know which players are showing up in the biggest moments, it's a great time to check out their player props and see if you can find some value in their points, their rebounds, their assists, their steals, whatever it may be. Got a read on who's heating up? Don't go with the same game parlay. Maybe it's a couple people that you think. Boost your odds. Have 4 of them. I win 4-game parlays all the time. How could $200 in bonus bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins? It sounds pretty exciting to me. So if you're new to FanDuel, it is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, lickety split, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's get back to the show. All right, man. So I'm kind of putting you on the hot seat here. Jonathan Kuminga, who showed the capability in the playoffs and even in the regular season to go for 30, multiple games back to back in the regular season, went for 30 when he was considered the second option before Jimmy Butler joined the fold. But we all know some of the downsides that come with him. Point to that LA game where he had his back turned to the basket. And some people say, no, Reeves just cooked Wiggins. Others say Kuminga was supposed to be there. It's the intangibles. It's the where are you supposed to be on the floor? It's the, hey, remember when Steph Curry said, buddy, or Steve Kerr said, buddy, meet Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter of all time. Apparently that is something that has been bogging Steve Kerr's mind, considering that Kuminga really wants the ball in his hands and wants to make plays happen. And Kerr's basically like, hey, make plays happen when the plays come to you. Otherwise, look for the engine that has made this thing run for over a decade now. You, Jonathan Kuminga, what's the relationship like in terms of how good a Warrior you believe he could be and whether he has potential to be an all-star type player, an all-NBA type player, or even higher, an MVP type player, dare I say it?
I don't think MVP is in the cards. In fact, let me throw this at you. I think the choice that Jonathan Kuminga is eventually going to have to make is whether he wants to be Aaron Gordon or Corey Maggette. And what I mean by that is Aaron Gordon is a player who's never made an all-star team, but anybody around the league, fans who really pay attention to basketball would tell you is a quality winning and obviously a championship level player. That said, the flip side of it is Corey Maggette, who is someone who across his career has averaged more points than Aaron Gordon has. He's had multiple 20-point per game seasons. He's been someone that on a bad team, a lot of Warriors fans will remember this, can go out and get you a bunch of buckets. At the end of the night, you're looking at the scoreboard and the team's got more points than you. That's what Kuminga, to me, has to decide between whether he wants to be someone in Aaron Gordon that can figure out how he contributes with his athletic gifts, with his physicality, with lottery-type potential to a winning club, or if he wants to go out and get 20 a night on a bad team and be Corey Maggette. I don't think that Jonathan Kuminga is an MVP candidate in the future. I don't think that being an all-NBA player is in the cards for him. Maybe a fringe all-star, which is what Aaron Gordon has been in his career, Chuck. But in my opinion, that doesn't mean that he's not a bad player. Like, if you want to be Aaron Gordon, which, to be fair, took about 5 or 6 years to become, that's completely fair. And you're going to make a lot of money if you're in your career if you're doing that. But those are the two players that I would comp Kuminga to at this point in his career, because I don't think it's fair to say he projects to one thing or another. But does he want to be the guy that helps you win and be a bit of a role player? At least, a third or fourth option that can get you a bucket in a big game, but also kind of be that presence that Aaron Gordon is? Or is he going to be Corey Maggette, who finds himself also playing in the league for 10 years and as a contributor, but is really just out there to get his?
Isn't it crazy how little stats mean at the end of the day in terms of overall performance? Like, you look at Aaron Gordon and what he was doing in Orlando and the numbers that he had then and the numbers that he has now with Denver, and they're pretty similar, right? I think the rebounds are up a little, the assists, that the statistics that really display like dirty work and buying in have gotten slightly better, overall efficiency slightly better, but the numbers don't tell the entire story. It's why when, Wiggins was traded for Jimmy Butler last season, and I tried to use the mistake not watching a ton of Jimmy Butler pre-Warriors of just like, dude, I mean, you're swapping out 18 for 18. You're going 18-point Wiggs for 17.5 Jimmy Butler or whatever it may be. And then you watch them both play and just kind of how Butler was able to make everyone around him so much better and do the dirty work and be so unselfish. And Wiggins did a lot of these things too. Like, he was awesome, but there was just clearly, I mean, the proof was in the pudding just from the team overall that Jimmy Butler made a huge difference. And Gordon's kind of the same way, where it's like his career has gotten better, even though the numbers didn't necessarily get better. With Kuminga, the one thing that stands out, it's hard to find players now that are 6'8", 210, tweener between power forward, small forward. Like, no one technically knows what his position is. I think Steve Kerr wants him to be more of a power forward, to where, he's down low and he's getting boards and he's finishing around the rim and he's using these God-given abilities that he has. And I think it's just as fair to look at Jonathan Kuminga and say he has God-given abilities attacking and playing around the perimeter and taking it to the bucket and being a scorer. And you see all these things together. The issue to me is he shot at 30% from three this season. He shot at 66% from the line. Look, you can have bad season shooting. He's a career 33% shooter from deep. He's a career 69% free throw shooter. He has played long enough to where I don't think you can ever look at Kuminga and say this guy is someone that should be playing a ton around the perimeter in terms of shooting the basketball. And he shoots it. That's the thing. Like, you look at some of the games down the stretch, he took 9 threes in the final game of the season against Minnesota, hit 33%, but took 4 threes in a game. Granted, hit 3 of them. But the 3-point numbers have consistently gone up throughout his career, to where he was taking upwards of, 3.5 3-pointers per game this season. Is that something that you think the Warriors need to tell him? Like, hey, JK, be around the basket, learn from Peyton a little and do some dirty work, be a bruiser, use your God-given skills? Or are you in the mindset of, like, your God-given skills have you around the perimeter, just don't take as many threes, get a better pump fake and take it to the rack? Like, what do you think in terms of the player that he should be molding himself, or is it a happy balance is best?
I mean, I think Kuminga is like, well, let me back up. I do think that the tweener position you were talking about like 10 years ago, that's kind of where Steph was stuck. People didn't know if he was a point guard or a shooting guard. The real tweener in modern NBA basketball, to me, is between the 3 and the 4. Like, you don't know which kind of forward you're getting, because in a lot of cases they're interchangeable. Someone like Jalen Williams, who just scored 40 points in an NBA Finals game, is not a great 3-point shooter, but he's serviceable enough. Kuminga is not at that level yet that he can basically pick up, cheap baskets, get free points, and draw people to the 3-point line enough to attack at the ability that he's able to display. I think he's a really good slasher. But to me, if he was able to shoot the 3-pointer as well as, say, someone like Jalen Williams does, his game opens up entirely. And I do think that he has that kind of potential. To me, I know that he's a little bit younger, but that's the player that he should try to mold his game after. And Jalen Williams obviously had the benefit of playing a year in college, or a couple of years in college at Santa Clara, but someone that understands how much he has to defend is just as important as how much he has to score. And so that, to me, is a little bit where the disconnect kind of comes into play with Kuminga. It's not that he isn't an uber talented player. It's not that he can't score at the rim whenever he so chooses, but the feel aspect of his game, to me, Chuck, sort of lacks at this stage, which isn't crazy because he's 22. But the 3-point shot is not something that I would expect all of a sudden to jump from 30% to 36 or 37, which is around league average. I don't think Kuminga is ever going to be that shooter. So he has to figure out how much he can hit from 3-point range to basically make the defense respect his jump shot. And I just think that's the biggest hole in his offensive arsenal right now. No one respects the jump shot enough to allow him to do what he does so well, which is really attack the Tim.
I'm going to tell you my favorite thing about Jonathan Kuminga coming up before we get into a little Eric Dixon to finish the show. That's coming up on Locked On Warriors. My favorite thing about Jonathan Kuminga, and I do not see it enough, and a lot of it had to do with we didn't see a lot of Kuminga down the stretch. So maybe we did see it a lot this season, but my focus was on Butler later in the season, what he was bringing to the mix. That mid-range game, that turnaround J, that little back down turnaround, I wouldn't say money yet, but there is a lot of potential there. With his frame, he can get it off over anyone. He's got a quick first step to where he could, really develop some back to the basket moves and get to the rack. Not going to be a hook shot type of guy or anything. Leave that to Pods. But the hook shot, obviously, sky hooks only. It's a thing of the past in the NBA. I'm interested to hear, though, what your, I guess, favorite part of his game is, or what you think separates him from other players in the league, because he has a special ability, in transition to finish when there is not, I guess, a good defender there. Because his issue is, right, when he's barreling his way to the bucket, even if it's in transition, he tends to get stripped quite a bit, or just a little loose with the ball. His handles aren't 1,000% there. But when he gets a full head of steam and is going up against the right matchup, he can finish over anyone. He's strong. He's athletic. He's got plenty of finesse for a guy his size. Like, he's really good in that regard. But a lot of players can do that. And like I said, he does have issues from time to time with his handles and just controlling the basketball. He's turnover happy. Part of the reason why Steve Kerr doesn't play him a ton. But there aren't many players in the league that we saw at a couple games, I believe in Minnesota, maybe in one of the Houston games where he got some run, where you just give him the ball in the mid-range and he just hits 3 in a row and you're like, damn, that was pretty slick. There's not a lot of players in the world that can do that. I'm interested to kind of hear your take on Kuminga and what he impresses you most with.
I mean, to me, I think it is finishing around the rim, and above the rim specifically. And I think that's a skill that is highlighted by the fact that the Warriors don't have much of those guys. The issue to me with Kuminga is just the consistency of his jump shot. And again, I don't expect him to be a great 3-point shooter, but like last year, Chuck, so his third season, he shot 41% from 10 to 16 feet, like the mid-range. This year, granted, he was hurt, and when he came back, he wasn't the same player. He shot 32% from 10 to 16 feet. That's a pretty dramatic drop. Like if you're above 40, that's not terrible, not great, but not terrible. Kuminga took a step back in that regard. And so to me, from 3 to 10 feet, like inside that, when he gets 2 feet in the paint, he is deadly. And I think he actually doesn't get enough credit for being able to finish with both his left hand and his right hand at a pretty efficient rate. But the mid-range, I think, is as great as it looks. To me, it's not good enough yet for him to just get the ball in the post or around the elbow and expect him to go get you 2 points. So that's something that I hope he can take a step forward in this offseason. And I would be willing, again, Chuck, because of those percentages, I would be willing to give him that contract to see if this year, up until the deadline, he can make that improvement, because I don't think he's as bad in the mid-range as he was overall this season. And I think he has room to improve on what he did in his third season. So, and that was when he was at his best efficiency scoring wise. So what he does best, he puts the ball in the hole. And I think when he gets ahead of steam, along with shooters around him, he can be a lethal threat, but he needs to be prioritized a bit too much on the offensive side at this point. And really where the biggest issue lies for me as far as his development is concerned would be on the defensive end. I just think he has to be a guy that Steve Kerr, the Warriors in general, can rely on to keep a guy in front of him, and I don't see it as much right now.
I mean, he has the athleticism to match up with anyone. You saw it with Edwards. He gave Edwards some problems with his on-ball defense, but there's a lot more than just on-ball defense, and it's the consistency of it. It's the not being over-aggressive and not, knowing your reads at all times, knowing where you're supposed to be, just offensively and defensively. All right, Kuminga. We've gotten a lot of Kuminga out of the way. The thing with Kuminga is all the Warriors can really do at this point is sit back and wait for the day after the NBA Finals when they can really stew up the conversations. Went from 9 points his rookie year to 15 points per game last season. Only played in 47 of the Warriors games. They've worked out a lot of players as Golden State. RJ Lewis, we know our guy Sion James from Duke, players that they could potentially draft at 41. Have not looked at the mock on Eric Dixon, but I would just assume as a 6'8", 260-pound forward that's also a 25-year-old, I believe, at this point, someone that played 5 years at Villanova and was in the class of 2019, was the 67th recruit in that class. And by the way, the number 1 recruit in that class was James Wiseman. So that was quite a long time ago. But he's been awesome, man. Went from 3 points his rookie year, I guess his freshman year at Villanova, to 9 points, to 15, to this year, 23 points per game, 5 rebounds, shot volume threes and hit 40%, 81% from the free throw line. I saw him just tear up the Cincinnati Bearcats alone, where he had like 40 points or something. Like, this guy was a college superstar, a Tyler Hansbrough, one of the best players in the game that no one really talked about because Kyle Neptune at Villanova was a disaster. Not Jay Wright. But these guys don't always translate to the NBA. Are you intrigued at all by a 6'6" or 6'8", 260-pound forward that can stretch the floor and has shown that he can score at the highest level of NCAA basketball?
Yeah, any player that shoots 40% from three-point range can play for my team in the NBA. The one thing that does concern me a little bit about him is he's not much of a passer, and that's been something that Steve Kerr has emphasized. I think he's had a negative assist-to-turnover ratio during his time there, but he can fill it up. And for someone who's 6'8", again, kind of in that tween small forward, power forward spot, I think that he's somebody that the Warriors absolutely should look at because you need to score. I think the one thing that we've learned about this NBA Finals is that you got to find guys that can put the ball in the basket. And the Warriors really missed, especially at the 4 and 5 position, players that could shoot the 3 ball. So Eric Dixon, if he falls to that point, absolutely would be someone that I would look at, Chuck, because strictly of his ability to shoot the 3-point ball and to stretch the floor in general.
Evan, good stuff. We'll talk to you soon. Locked On Warriors.
Thank you, Chuck.